What gets you up in the morning?
Uh, just there's like a sense of well, a long time ago, I got really depressed, like in high school, and I didn't really want to get up in the morning a lot of the time, and it was one of those things where it wasn't like just a few days of depression or even a few months of depression. It was just like my whole life changed, and I saw the world differently, and so ever since then, first of all, a sense of duty to my own existence gets me up. Like I basically started dealing with depression by kind of tricking myself into enjoying my life and to believing that there might be something else going on than what my mind was telling me was going on, that my mind might be lying to me about who I am, what's going on, where my feelings are coming from, and I always try to wait to be surprised by my life and act as if. And so one way to act as if my life is not only worth living but like precious and important and holy and all those things is to wake up and act as if it is, and treat it as such. And the same thing with myself. So and I've gone through periods where it's harder to get up in the morning for whatever reason, and I get up later or whatever. But, I have like, for the longest time, one of my reasons why my reasons for being was my younger brother, and I wanted to be a good example for him. And, he grew up in the same family as me, and he's a different person, but I figured if he ever hit a point where he was going through depression, I didn't want to be one of those people who acted like, it was time to just, cave in on myself and act like nothing else and nobody else mattered. And maybe that's kind of, I got that like from my family, and I should be easier on myself and let myself, be depressed if I'm depressed. But that's kind of what it is.
That's beautiful. So duty to act as if your life matters.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite phrases or aphorisms as well. What makes you angry?
So many things. I feel like I mentioned depression, and I think one of the things, I heard a long time ago that depression is anger turned inwards, and I'm a female, and women aren't. I think both the way that men and women, and or people who identify as such or whatever, are taught to deal with their emotions is kind of not exactly right. Doesn't really help, and and we have to find other ways. But like for women, you're not allowed to express anger. There's a lot of passive aggression, and there's a lot of things like that ends up manifesting, and so a lot of my healing has been acknowledging that I have a lot of anger, that I have a lot of almost like righteous indignation about the way things are and the way people act and the way things have been. And one of the things that really bothers me the most is like when people act like people they're not, or I used to, I went through a little bit of bullying when I was a kid, and to this day, when people are excluded from things or things like that, I get really mad, really judgmental of the people who I perceive as doing the excluding. My college, St. John's, was like, I had a really hard time there emotionally, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people who are even vaguely sensitive did too. And it was a really small place, and it was just such a judgmental environment, and just so emotionally small, and I just have a lot of rage still about, how people were treated, and the cliquishness of like a place that was supposed to be so evolved. We were thinking about such big ideas and stuff, but we weren't that amazing. So yeah, those are some of the things that upset me.
What's the most fun you've had in Santa Fe since the vaccine?
Oh, good question. Well, sorry, is it okay if I take a minute to think about it?
I can probably trim it out even.
Okay. Well, I made a new friend. Her name is Bernadette, and we've done a few things together. We've gone to restaurants, we've gone hiking, and it was, it's after so much isolation, it was just nice to, meet someone that I was compatible with, and do some of the things I really like doing in Santa Fe, especially hiking, being in nature. So, I mean, and it's kind of brought a new sense of like vitality and possibility to my life, which is nice.
That's beautiful. Shout out to Bernadette.
Yes.
You are listening to Artist with Brian. I'm Brian here with
Alma Hall.
Alma is a poet. Check her out at almasblog.com. That's ALMASBLOG.com. Season 3 of Artist with Brian is brought to you by howtoplaypoker.video. When's the last time you played poker, Alma?
Maybe college, if that.
So this is not
school.
For you.
Yeah, I'm not a poker person.
The next time you play poker is not on the horizon. Well, if you want to learn how to be better at it, visit howtoplaypoker.video today. There are 64 videos, over 10 hours of instruction. They have 1.2 million views to date, over a 95% satisfaction rating. Make some money, impress your friends. Try a new hobby, howtoplaypoker.video. Alma, how do you feel as a poet about rap music?
I mean, like any other music genre, there are some songs I love and some songs I don't. I grew up with a lot of, it was a genre that was very foreign to me. I didn't know how to interact with it. My parents didn't, like it. There was just this kind of blanket judgment about it as being kind of, not artistic and not musical. And I think what happens to Black music is that it gets appropriated, and so they have to find new ways to express themselves, and they do that so well. So like a few years ago, I had a roommate who was really into hip hop and rap, and he introduced me to a lot of, first of all, rappers that weren't, doing the kind of typical. They weren't writing about the typical things that we, have, rap music is marketed to us as, being about, getting down in the club and like, gang violence and, really either really dark things or really shallow things. And I, I realized that it was a lot like, slam poetry almost. Like there was a lot that was similar, and there was something obviously very deep about it, and very personal, very emotional, and that's what I really like about it, and that it's authentic, when it's not like Post Malone, but yeah.
Interesting. So do you pick the Poet Laureate of the United States or the most poetic rapper you come across? Who's the better poet right now in 2021?
Oh, God. I think it's just different. Like there's Joy Harjo, who like is the current poet laureate, and she doesn't. I don't know if she's a musician, but she's not a musician. She's a poet, you know, and like a rapper is also, you know, speaking to a beat and instruments and or whatever, sampled music, or so it's slightly different. You know, and I do think that the more something is you know, made to be like marketed and sold, the less the less beautiful it gets. Even if not to say that there isn't beauty to it, but you know, it becomes like something of its value is taken away. So,
are your poets, or are your poems in your mind meant to be read on the page or heard aloud?
I have not gotten this far in my relationship to my poetry. I mean, I enjoyed reading them aloud. I've read them aloud before. But you know, there's a certain, you know, when you read a poem, just like from a page, you can hear it in whatever voice you want, you know, whatever tone. And there's, you know, I really am against assigning meaning to poetry. I hated poetry because of poetry analysis when I was in high school, and I think that people should be able to just read or hear whatever they want in a poem.
Awesome. How do you write your poetry?
Well, I went to a summer writing camp when I was 16, and that's the first time I learned about writing poetry. And I remember the guy who was teaching it, he said you start off, the way he did it was he started off with prose, like he had something to say, something he wanted to express, and then he would kind of distill that into a poem. And so that's kind of how I do it, although you know, it usually there was like, I remember a quote that I read about how a poem starts, that there's like a poem begins as a tightness in the throat, like you want to cry, and then you write a poem. And so often it's like there's an emotion, there's something in me that wants to express itself, and I you know, it's not just about the words, it's about the shape of the poem and the obviously rhythm and all those things. But I really like to draw, so I also get visual with the poems and how they look on the page. And yeah, I feel like I kind of digressed there, but it's just kind of like that.
Yeah, so I write like 1 or 2 poems a year, and they come to me spontaneously as like a couplet or the first 2 lines. And then it's a labor for me to even come up with a 3rd line, and it ends up devolving. So what's going on with me? Why do I only write 2 lines like that?
You need to write more poems. I mean, not wait till they come to you, but like, especially if like, I mean, that's just my 2 cents. I mean, who knows? But like anytime I can transform, and usually it's like some form of anguish, you know, into something, first of all, beautiful, and that someone else can relate to, so I don't feel as alone. 'Cause often, you know, if I feel alone with a bad feeling, then it's way worse than if I feel like someone understands me. And then, you know, and then kind of get it out of my system and, you know, put it somewhere where I can see it, and I've made it into something that has value and isn't just like sitting inside. But like, you know, anytime you feel emotional about something, or you feel inspired or feel strongly about anything, just, you could try writing a poem, and don't worry about what it sounds like. Just write crap and then turn that into something else, because it might not be crap, you know.
Yeah. Poems are like that a lot for me, is I can't judge them the day of.
Yeah.
I'll find one that's several years old and really like it.
Yeah.
So how long have you written poetry in the number of years?
I'm trying to think. I wrote some really Shel Silverstein-esque poems when I was younger, and I hated poetry. I hated reading it. I hated writing it. And whenever I was assigned to write a poem, I was just like, that was what I thought of. Or they sounded really like sing-song and not particularly interesting. And then I learned about, we had the Walt Whitman class and free verse class in high school, and I learned that there was, you didn't have to rhyme, it didn't have to have meter, it didn't have to have, anything. And then, I got to college and I started reading this poet, this Sufi poet, named Hafiz. And he was the one that, first of all, he really awakened my, I was spiritual before, but his poetry was like magic. It was just incredible. It just completely changed my perspective on everything, suffering especially, and God and all the things that I, had, thought of differently before. And then he also helped me love poetry, helped me love reading poetry, and then inspired me to write poetry as a way of being spiritual. And the way I think of that is just kind of getting beyond my usual sphere and seeing things in a more like 4-dimensional way, and assigning meaning to things that don't at first feel meaningful. So, yeah.
What has been the peak experience for you over the last 20-something years writing poetry?
The peak experience?
Yeah, because you mentioned spirituality. So, maybe it's just how far one of your poems traveled, the scale of the reach, or maybe it was spiritual. I don't know. But what was the tip top for you?
Well, in terms of, I guess, when I was in college, one thing that characterized me being in college was that I was in love, and it was unrequited. And it was, a very, in a way it was kind of good for me because I had a lot of issues that didn't, get to manifest themselves in a what would have been probably terrible relationship. And I just kind of like sublimated this enormous energy and these feelings and into poetry and into a relationship with what I understand as God. And writing poems about that, like the simultaneous feeling of like, I'm trying to find the word, like there's just where you're just like at the bottom of everything, like just miserable, and then at the same time, you feel like you've discovered something so beautiful and so sublime that you feel like the luckiest person ever, and everyone else knows about it, and that's fine, but it was like being able to create art about that, because that was something that really needed to be expressed. Like I wrote a poem that I didn't share with you for this podcast because it's a little, in terms of its just the language I used, I wasn't as proud of it, but the subject was all about how the love we don't give, the love that we feel but we don't share and we don't express, and it becomes pain. It becomes something in us that gets twisted, and so we have to find like a way, like not be ashamed that we experience those vulnerable feelings, even for someone who doesn't love us back, and then find a way to make that into something that sort of serves the world, and instead of hiding it and or becoming bitter or all those things.
Wow. Your answers are incredible. I can tell you're a poet. I think the listeners can too. So we're going to play a game right now.
Yeah.
And if you win, you get this unopened VHS copy of Dances with Wolves.
Thank you.
What do you think about this movie?
I've never seen it.
Okay, perfect. So you'll put in your VCR and then you'll know how you feel about it. So this game is called Pick the Poet That Killed Herself. So there's going to be 3 poems that I'll read, and they're each by a famous poet who killed herself. So I'm going to read the first poem.
Okay.
And it's your job to name the poet. Now I can do it. I can make it easier and say the 3 poets in no particular order, and you just have to match them up. Or if you really want to test your mettle as a poet yourself and knowing the area.
Did they all 3 kill themselves?
They did.
Okay.
So your brain's churning already.
I mean, I can think of 2 off the top of my head that I know.
Don't say them yet.
I won't.
Let's impress everybody. Okay, so first poem. It's not the whole poem, just an excerpt. You do not do any more black shoe, in which I have lived like a foot for 30 years, poor and white, barely daring to breathe or achoo. Daddy, I've had to kill you. You died before I had time, marble heavy, a bag full of God, ghastly statue with 1 gray toe, big as a Frisco seal.
I'm going to say Sylvia Plath.
Ding! You got it right. Do you know the method of suicide?
Yes. She stuck her head in the oven.
Yeah, which I always thought she died from the heat of the oven.
But it was carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide, exactly.
Luckily, they don't make ovens like that anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I heard. You can't stick your head in the oven and die anymore.
That's really good.
Unless it's on, but yeah.
Cool. So you're still in the running with Dances with Wolves. You got to get 2 more right.
Okay.
I was thinking of a son. The womb is not a clock, nor a bell tolling, but in the 11th months of its life, I feel the November, of the body as well as of the calendar. In 2 days it will be my birthday, and as always the earth is done with, its harvest. This time I hunt for death, the night I lean toward, the night I want. Well then, it was in the womb all along.
This is just a shot in the dark. Is it Anne Sexton?
Yeah, you got
That's
it.
the only other one I know.
You know your stuff. Oh, there's one more. So hopefully the writing style rings a bell so you can take home the unopened copy. The unopened VHS copy. It's still shrink wrapped, guys. Third and final poem. How much better is silence, the coffee cup, the table? How much better to sit by myself like the solitary seabird that opens its wings on the stake? Let me sit here forever with bare things, this coffee cup, this knife, this fork, things in themselves, myself being myself.
I don't know. I can't think of anyone else who's killed themselves.
Well, I'll give you a hint. This person is not actually a poet. She wrote some poetry, but she's primarily known as a novelist, as a journalist, or an autobiographer.
Still don't know. Sorry, I'm not going to get Dances
It's
with
okay.
Wolves.
Virginia Woolf.
Oh.
She
that
killed
would've
herself
been-
by walking into a river.
Should have known that one.
Anne
Yeah.
Sexton also killed herself with carbon monoxide in a garage. If you think suicide's a good option right now, please take a moment and call 1-800-273-TALK. 1-800-273-8255. Alma, what's your favorite fast food restaurant?
I don't know. I just don't like fast food. I'm a food snob, but I feel like there are some that I like. I just can't think of them. Maybe like In-N-Out or something. No, Lotta Burger. Is that fast food?
Yeah.
Yeah.
New Mexican, Lotta Burger.
Yeah.
Blake's. Good answer. Someone has said that before. I think Sue West from episode 3. Go check it out. What were you like in high school?
Oh, well, I had two personalities in high school. We moved right in the middle of high school, and I completely changed. But for the first part of high school, I went to an arts high school, and I performed, and I was a visual artist and a writer, and I did a lot of fun things all the time. And I was pretty outgoing during that portion of high school. I was really happy with my high school. There were other things that weren't that great, but that's fine. And then we moved 300 miles away from where I'd lived for most of my life. And we moved to Sonoma County. And my high school was not an arts high school. It was very football focused. And I just didn't know how to do it again, how to like come out of my shell and make friends and things. So I was pretty, I became very, like, a lot more bookish. I did a lot of, reading on spiritual things. I kind of hid in my room, and I wrote a lot. I was known as a really good writer in high school. And that's really what I think of as my time in high school. So, yeah.
So what advice, now that you've lived through that and come so far as a writer, what's the advice you would give someone in high school right now who is also, who's currently writing poems and doesn't know what's next?
Well, if you're unhappy, it'll be over soon. So that's one thing. Then, and if you are, a writer and you're writing, you're not like artistically blocked, first of all, I'm proud of you. Your writing is probably better than you think it is, and maybe other people think it is. If you're trying something new, that's amazing. I was not always a poet. I still don't really think of myself as a poet, but I do write poems. But my biggest message is that it'll be over soon, because it really sucks. High school is really hard for people who are intelligent or sensitive or different in any way. So,
is it all right if we go to the clay pot?
What's the clay pot?
It's a collection of fan questions.
Sure.
That I pull out at one at a time at random, and we go through just a few, see what we find. They're fun questions. First fan question: favorite New Mexico day trip?
I loved going to the Echo Amphitheater. I went to Heron Lake with my boyfriend when I was in junior year of college. It was the summer between junior and senior year, and Heron Lake was the destination. That's where we were going, but we stopped at the Echo Amphitheater on the way back, and it's like this rock formation that's like has a kind of parabolic, or I don't know if that's the correct mathematical term, curve, And so everything you say echoes. And someone had brought their violin and was playing it.
My.
It was amazing. And and it was overcast that day. It had been a fairly hot summer, not compared to now, but I was just super grateful for like the cloud cover and the music, and it was just so beautiful. And it's not too far away. It's from Santa Fe, it's like a little past Abiquiu, I think.
Oh, a little over an hour.
Yeah.
That's nice. What a good answer. It's very personal to you.
Yeah.
A lot of times we get like Taos or...
Taos. I hate driving to Taos. I hate it.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
How do you handle stress?
I don't handle it very well. For the longest time, I thought I wasn't, an athletic person. And then I got to college and I realized that I wasn't not athletic. And, I wasn't exactly an athlete, but I liked to move. And one of the things, for the longest time, I didn't have a car in Santa Fe, and I would either bike or walk places. And I got to develop this sort of power walking habit where I just like walk everywhere really fast. And that's like one of the things, like, I mean, it's nice to walk slowly and look at things, but sometimes, especially if you're stressed, you don't want to be too, you want to be more, in your body or whatever. And so walking really helps me. I also, just being in nature, looking around. I mean, and even, we live in a really nature-filled town. Doesn't feel like a city a lot of the time, and there's lots of trees and animals, and so there's always something to get you out of your head here. So
I've started walking 5 miles a day over the last few months.
Damn.
And it's totally changed my life.
That's awesome.
Started the podcast up again.
Yeah.
So if you want to submit a fan question, you're listening, you like this game we do at the end to engage everybody, leave it as a comment on Instagram at artistwithbrian with spelled out, all one word, Artist with Brian, or leave it, if you're feeling fancy, leave it as part of your iTunes review and iTunes podcast for the show. Final fan question, Alma. What size bed do you sleep in?
I sleep in a full-size bed, but it's just a mattress on the floor. It doesn't have a box
spring. On the floor, and no box spring or frame?
Yeah.
Is that like a strong preference?
No, I moved in February, and I moved 4 times last year, and I didn't want to try to go through the whole rigmarole of getting all the things for my bed again. So I just haven't gotten around to it. Especially, I'm kind of preparing to move again just in case I have to, even though I don't necessarily have to. So. Okay.
And if you want to keep in touch with Alma, thank you for coming, by the way, visit her website. almasblog.com, ALMASBLOG.com. And where can they email you if they want to tell you something more personal?
My email address is Alma, ALMA, B as in boy, here, HERE, @gmail.com.
Cool. Do you have any idea, or do you want to take a guess how many iTunes reviews this podcast has right now?
I don't know how many iTunes reviews podcasts usually have.
That's why I asked you. This is fun.
Maybe like 10.
Oh, cool. 19.
Wow.
And I'm trying to get to 25 and then 50 and then 100.
Damn, 19. That's awesome.
I think I'll stop Thank you. I'll stop talking about this for a long time once I hit 100. But for the time being, if you are the 25th, the 50th, or the 100th iTunes review for Artist with Brian, you're going to get hooked up with a $25, $50, or $100 iTunes gift card sent to the email of your choice. So a corresponding dollar amount. So go rate the show 5 stars, write something nice, or write a criticism. I'm open to everything. Also, another announcement, artistwithbrian.com is about to be a thing if you're a Santa Fe artist of any type with a strong view on a social issue or a local issue, and you're willing to write 500 words for $50 in Venmo, email at artistwithbrian@gmail.com. Thank you to our very first sticker partner, Santa Fe Human Rights Alliance. Visit Santa Fe Human Rights Alliance online, hrasantafe.org, to participate in their upcoming events. And Alma, one last thing before we go. Let's record a question from you for our next guest.
What keeps you creating art?
Awesome. Thanks for coming again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so first off, can you just say your full name?
Alma Hall.
Try it a few times.
Alma Hall. Alma Hall. Alma Hall.
Okay, great. And then whenever you're ready, we'll do the first one.
Do I say like the title or?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So this one's called Self-Pity. I would like a red carpet for all that I've done, a flying red carpet into heaven. And when it's hard in heaven and when I'm angry in heaven, I would like to sit in a cherry tree and eat and touch the clouds. I may forgive you, but I don't forgive the God who, dressed up as my father, left and he never explained it to me. I would love to sit on a dewy cloud that sparkles. I would weigh nothing, 30 pounds, just like I was 3. And I would love that when I forgave you, you would forgive me. You can't die in heaven, but maybe you can understand for me. I am not a vicious person, but I have been betrayed. I am not a weak person, but I have been left out. I am not a cruel person, but I have been ashamed. So angels bear traumas that I cannot see. I am not a liar. Ugliness has found me. I thirsted for justice and found only dirty water. I am hurt. You are too. May we be friends? I promise I won't hurt you, see? Just please do mind my hem and kiss it if you want to. When sadness tries to do us in, we will know the kings of this world were always worse. All right, should I just keep going?
No, when did you write that poem?
Last year.
Last year? Mm-hmm. So it's recent.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to you, or what was the impetus?
I mean, there was just a lot of a lot of my poetry is just trying to, what's the word, like transform painful experiences, or there's like kind of a certain feelings of apathy or not being connected to my emotions, and so trying to get back into my emotions. I'm a very I intellectualize everything. I tend to live in my head, and so poetry is a way to take what's probably been too rationalized and make it a little more emotional and easy for me to understand at the same time.
It's beautiful. Now, we met first about 6 months ago, and of the poems that I read at the time, this is my favorite.
Yeah.
So I think I noticed a change. I might be wrong, but in the first 2 lines, there used to be more repetition. It would go, I would like a red carpet to heaven for all that I've done, a flying carpet to heaven for all that I've done. Yeah. Something like that, right?
Yeah. So what happened was, and this is kind of a weird story, but I had an old professor who he started this book publishing cooperative related to St. John's, my alma mater, and he has a newsletter connected to it, and he said, do you have any work that you want published in the newsletter? And he basically went through and edited the poem. So I sent you the edited version because I couldn't find the unedited one, and I'm not really sure which one's better.
Okay.
And anyway, yeah, and he was kind of rude to me about my writing, but he still, published the poem. So, yeah.
Well, I can probably find you the copy you sent me if you want it back.
Sure.
Okay. Let's do the second one.
All right. So this poem is untitled. It's about my dad. To me, you are magic. Your voice is the final strands on a piano, infectious as spiked tea. As a girl, it drew me in. You sang into the phone of oysters and Chardonnay like they were all one had to live for. If I hadn't been so shy, I'd have asked to come to your party. Your letters were ecstatic poems written for goddesses and addressed to me. I imagined you close enough to speak them into my ear, right into my heart. Now with the end closer than the lashes to your eyes, you still tell me you believe. I say, okay. Where are you going? What door will you enter in those holy rags? When all of heaven is in your hands, filling everything with so much light, dear man, will you remember me? This is what I have, an old couch. You look at me. You're 5 years old today, my dear, 5 years old today, and I, in worn pajamas, a little girl in your lap.
Very good.
Want me to keep going?
Yeah, let's do 3.
Okay. Lotus. I never knew before how softly a heart could break, like the crystals in a glow stick bent by a little kid, and underneath a surprising amount of light. But why? I believe so much in love and magic that surpasses reason, heals wounds, unites things. But why like that? I bet every hurt person asks that. Of course they do. In Zen, they tell stories that defy reason to launch students into nirvana. Maybe you're a koan, a parable, a fable, a big fat lesson. But is that what you want to be? A friend told me today, you're so genuine, it's nice to see. Before I could be secretly offended, she said, I think probably a lot of people wish they could be genuine, but people are afraid to be themselves. I'm more motivated by love than fear, and you're the reason why. I've cried face down in puddles a few times since I met you. It's because I know what's important. I don't lay in mud for nothing. Keep going. Okay, another untitled poem. There's only one story, and it's mine. When the loneliness finally sets in, and the gray old men with their walking sticks and angry jowls come like dusk to whisper in my ears, I smile at them like friends. Sit down, I say. I'll be the air you breathe. My light will make a path if you can't find yours. Hate and his silent brother grief have left. Turns out they only came to hear me cry, and I finished that long ago. I don't know what I was made for, but I know finally it wasn't weeping. Okay, and this one is called Bill's Hill. I climbed your hill and ate all the strawberries at the top, one after another. I feel the steepness of that hill like I'm a vine, and I have a stick to wrap around suddenly. There are pear tomatoes I might carry home in my pockets. Tiny rows of corn stand like Indian princesses. Sprawling squash have grown into yellow submarines across the garden floor, hollowed out for worms to live in. Do you till for no one, for the child who happens upon the garden? I hope you don't mind that I ate your strawberries and at the top of the hill, that I dig through the leaves when I go up there still. That's it.
Very good. Thank you. You feel ready? Yeah.
As ready as I'm going to be.